Rapid regeneration, and I'm David Escamilla. I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not giving claims about diseases or making medical claims. I am just somebody who is committed to helping you. I'm somebody who has helped myself. I have set out to discover the secrets of the universe, the secrets of the ages. I thought my life was over. I had given up on life because I got so sick. I felt so horrible from health problems at the young age of 21, 22. And yeah, I suffered for 4 years, and I was open-minded. I was still hoping I could find the answers. And when I discovered some of this information, guess what? I used it. I got myself healthy and well. I recovered completely, and now I've gone to the next level. But in doing that, I have been drafted into this mission of helping you. So what I didn't know at the time, and why it took me so long, it took me 3.5 years to recover and to fully get rid of all my symptoms, doing body cleansing, supplements, eating healthier, raw foods, fruits, and transitioning and trying to eat a healthier lifestyle. What I didn't know held me back, and it slowed me down, and it caused me to sort of exercise with weights on. I didn't need to wear those weights. I was making it harder than it needed to be, and in so many ways. And this is one of the big ways. With these raw foods to consider avoiding. It took me a long time to discover some of this information, and had I known it sooner, it would have helped me a lot. So that's why I'm sharing it with you. There's few other places that you can really find this information. I find that a lot of the people who promote raw foods, do so without the nuance of this information. And I agree, raw foods are amazing, and you can change your life by eating more of them. But this nuance is so essential and key to understand, and there's levels to it. So this is at the top of the mountain in terms of if you're gonna cut out some of these raw foods and not eat them, it's almost like extra credit, because if you're eating a lot of raw foods, you're already doing amazing. So I don't want to discount that. And I don't want to make it sound like you have to cut out these controversial raw foods to do well. About what we tried to do. So please allow me to do the same for you. So what I've found is just because a food is raw does not mean it's suitable for a human to consume. After all, just look at individuals out there who are consuming raw fish or even raw meat and raw beef. There's numerous issues with doing that, including major acidity, putrefaction and bacterial decomposition within the intestines, and an open invite to all kinds of parasites. There's less extreme examples or more extreme examples of raw ingredients in nature, like certain tree barks, certain roots, certain grasses, which can be disagreeable to humans or even poisonous. These are raw foods, but we shouldn't eat them. So the items I'm going to list out on this list are the controversial characters in the raw food world. The so-called troublemakers, infamous, cool. Everybody wants to hang out with these ones. Okay, but you need to contrast this list with the other ingredients in the raw food world that are like the innocent angels. There are foods in the raw food world that are just benevolent. They will do nothing but help you. There's no side effects. There's no baggage. There's no strings attached. There's no controversy. For delivering to you this naughty list of raw foods, they come with certain issues that you just want to be aware of. I'm just the messenger, okay? I'm not trying to make this up. When I identify the truth, I share it with you, or what seems to be the truth, okay? So that's just what I do. And I understand these are a lot of the fun raw foods that can be used to make delicious meals and especially savory. So I like these dishes too. I'm not saying you can never eat them, and it's not a black and white issue. I'm just saying that these foods are lurking around in a gray area, and they're more shady, unlike your straightforward foods that just help you. Okay, so increase your knowledge, increase your awareness. And then after you learn about this list, decide for yourself, okay, do you want to just eat them anyways, eat the food anyways, stop eating the food so frequently, maybe just have it occasionally, or avoid it altogether? All right, so I'm gonna barrel through this list. The first one is gonna be your nightshades. This is your tomatoes, your eggplants, and your peppers. Okay, this is a toughie. All right, I know this is very wide-ranging ingredient, especially your tomatoes and your peppers. I protested at the thought of giving up tomatoes. I thought I was helping out my prostate and providing good health by eating this fruit. But after I moved on from eating it, I did feel like I advanced to a higher level of healing. Okay, these nightshades contain a chemical that's considered toxic to our body called solanine. Okay, it can interfere with proper nerve activity. It actually blocks cholinesterase tomatoes also contain a lectin that creates an immune response, causes the body to produce antibodies, which basically can create an inflammatory event inside of the body. All right, so these are nightshade fruits, okay, very resistant to pests in the wild, but also can result in a level of chemical toxicity. Okay, there's a lot of professional athletes that are aware of the risks of eating excessive nightshade fruits and choose not to eat them. Okay, next up is going to be your peppers and your hot and spicy foods. Now, this is a very challenging one as well. It's difficult to avoid completely, especially if you're eating foods that others prepare. Okay, like crushed peppercorns, which is black pepper. That's a chef's best friend. You know, just have an awareness about this and maybe don't go out of your own way to add this into your own meals. Hot peppers are irritating to the body system overall. This includes black pepper, cayenne pepper, and peppers of all kinds. This heat is overstimulating to the gastrointestinal tract. It causes excessive mucus formation. This excessive mucus can create all kinds of congestion, blockages, prevention of natural flow and ease to the body. And the hotter the peppers, the more overstimulating and irritating they are to the body. Okay, now there's benefits of peppers, no doubt, as evidenced by cayenne pepper, you know, with the cardiovascular system. But, you know, these gains are often recommended by the natural wellness community, but just consider these short-term gains as a trade for long-term problems and blowback from all the irritation, overstimulation, and the mucus. Okay, next up is ginger. Now, I hate to say this, you know, but yeah, ginger can be overstimulating and disruptive to the body, potentially causing mucus formation. Also, it can harm colonies of good probiotic bacteria in the microbiome. It's not really a natural food that we would eat in nature. If you think about it, if you found this root in nature, but we like to make it available nowadays in a juice or a smoothie. There's no doubt benefits to ginger, but overall it seems like it's overstimulating, potentially irritating or mucus forming to the body. So just consider leaving it out. All right, next up on the list is onions, leeks, and chives. So this is a toughie. I mean, because the flavor is savory, it's tangy, it's comforting, especially if you've transitioned from a modern diet of cooked foods. You know, it can help. It can help. So this was challenging for me to phase out, although I did not miss it after it was gone. Now, even nowadays, I'll consume some just by happenstance. You know, if I'm eating out or with friends, and it's one of the ingredients, you know, I could taste it, and it reminds me how I really don't miss the taste. The taste, you know, is quite pungent. That's why chefs, you know, they'll sweat out the onions, because the raw onions, you know, is so pungent. But cooked onions are quite delicious. I mean, so yeah, I mean, it's a tough one to give up and to imagine a world without onions, but just understand, okay, these foods are part of the alkalize plant family. This has been known for millennia to be kind of problem children of the food world. Okay, both the Taoists in China and the Hindus in India have avoided these ingredients, and they've cited all kinds of esoteric negative effects that these foods are purported to have, including causing harm to the lungs, spleen, liver, heart, kidneys, causing aggravation, agitation, anxiety, and aggression in an individual. Now, that's kind of the esoteric spiritual background of onions and leeks and chives, but from a more scientific point of view, it is true that basically these foods are high in sulfonic acids, And basically, these are created when the flesh of the onion is torn apart. When this happens, your eyes tear up in reaction to the harshness of that chemistry. But just think that when you eat those onions, you can feel this burn inside of you, this sensation as they're being digested. So just imagine that the same sensation that your eyes are feeling is happening inside your body. Not good. So there are benefits to eating onions. Those have been observed. They are stimulating, but overall they're overstimulating and they're causing chemical detriment. So is the unique flavor really worth the baggage? Just try. See if you feel better and sweeter and more elevated without them. Okay, are you upset with me yet? I'm sorry. Look, I didn't make this up. I really did not make this up. I loved all these foods. And I just expanded my awareness and I learned about this, and something happens when you give it a try and you try abstaining from them, and I can't argue with the results of how much better I felt. Okay, the next one is garlic. Garlic belongs to the olaceous plant family as well, just as the onions do. So all those above qualities also apply to garlic. But garlic gets its own category because it's in a league of its own. Okay, it is stimulating to the cardiovascular system. So there are some definitely benefits to garlic. And it's also antibiotic, antifungal, antiseptic, and so forth. So now these beneficial properties can be an asset or a liability. So while they can be a good thing, it could also be overstimulating to the system. The other thing is that, yes, they're antibiotic and everything, but if you're very toxic and if you're full of parasites, that can be a good thing, because it's anti-parasitic. But if you are already cleaned out and you have a healthy, natural microbiome of probiotics, then garlic can be too harsh. Garlic will basically kill bacteria indiscriminately of both good and bad. And so it can actually jeopardize your colonies of probiotics and be too strong. Your immune system is the best candidate to kill harmful organisms, right? Unlike garlic, because your immune system can discriminate against good and bad bacteria, while garlic cannot. There's other issues about toxicity relating to garlic. So it contains sulfone hydroxyl ion. This actually penetrates the blood-brain barrier. It contains allicin. This causes excessive permeability in certain tissues. It allows molecules to penetrate where they otherwise wouldn't. And it can also interfere with liver functions, including the ability to process lipids and create cholesterol. So garlic is a disruptive entity. It can be quite disharmonious with our body's natural ease. So now, this was not an easy one to give up. A lot of people can't handle raw garlic, the taste. Now, I used to love it. I could not get enough of it. And so much to the point where my mom used to complain about the smell coming out of my skin. And but after I learned about all this stuff and after I cut it out, I must say I feel better overall, much better. I mean, as opposed to having kind of this stimulated satiation of the savory taste of garlic, I just have a much lasting, more dynamic energy. And oh, by the way, did I mention that my dating life is much improved as well after going off the clove? All right, next raw food to consider avoiding is cacao or chocolate. This is a food which is highly acidic, contains high amounts of oxalic acids. Oxalic acids can create overcalcification. As a response, the body reacts to the overacidity, and this can even lead to calcium stones. So not much more needs to be said about that, even though, trust me, I used to eat it. I find it's delicious, but I'm sorry. Okay, next up is cruciferous vegetables. I'm sorry if this one's a bummer. I agree these are tasty foods, especially if you steam them or cook them. I'm not trying to rain on your parade. I'm just trying to tell you what the deal is. I still eat from time to time. I'll have some steamed broccoli or carrots. I mean, carrots are not a cruciferous vegetable, but the category includes broccoli, cauliflower, kale, collard greens, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, turnips, mustard seeds, radish, arugula, and watercress, among other vegetables that are more obscure. So the problem with cruciferous vegetables is that they contain goitrogen substances. These substances are shown to interfere with the thyroid gland and its ability to regulate iodine, other hormones, and maintain metabolic and overall balance within the body. So basically that's why they're goitrogenic, aka a goiter, on somebody's thyroid. More specifically, if you want to get really nerdy with it, these plants contain isothiocyanate, which is known for decreasing thyroid function by blocking parasites and interfering with communication being sent back and forth with thyroid cells. If you think about it, these are really heavy vegetable foods. They're more fit for an herbivore type animal to be chewing them and digesting them. They do have some benefits. They're nutritional raw foods. They have good qualities. They have vitamins and minerals, but their interference with your body's natural harmony is likely to outweigh the good qualities that you have. So they're a mixed bag food. They're not a simple, straightforward, healthy food, and so you might consider avoiding them. All right, next up, raw food to consider avoiding is going to be your excessive salt and salty foods. So we know that the body needs sodium as an essential mineral, and we must consume it to survive. Now, I like to consume a green powder that has a post-plant sodium. You can find that at rapidregeneration.com/green powder. Processed salt products are considered pre-plant sodium. Even like sea salt and Himalayan pink salt is not an ideal way to consume to obtain sodium. It has its own controversy. Sea salt is processed heavily, right? It uses industrial machinery. It heats it, so it's not really even a raw food. And sometimes chemicals get added to it, but the process also caused it to be stripped of its trace minerals. Now, sea salt is not as bad as normal processed salt, which is known as table salt. This is cooked at high temperatures, and also chemicals are added to it to give it that texture, that snowflake texture, such as aluminum hydroxide, which can be considered neurotoxic. Now, table salt is so ubiquitous that you might find it's difficult to avoid completely if you ever eat in restaurants or with family and friends. And I'm sorry if you do. I've been there, and you may just feel the effect that the body has when you consume it. But also just keep in mind, you can be eating too much sea salt or Himalayan salt as well. That's why I like to use the green powder to make sure I'm getting enough sodium. Too much salt is dehydrating, creates water retention, it dilutes your body's chemistry, it slows down the detoxification of the body, and it's also addicting. It can throw somebody off of a good balance, a good momentum, and if they have a really salty meal, then the next day they crave another salty meal, then the next day, and it can become like a vicious cycle. So it is very addicting. The food industry knows this. These big food corporations know this. They've been targeting you and your family with salty foods for your whole life, basically, unfortunately. Now, once someone gets off of and I've been through it myself too, trust me. But once you get kind of off of it, then you don't really crave it as much. So again, it's not a black and white issue. There are some shades of gray. The best balance I've found is to try to eat that green powder, rapidregeneration.com/green powder. If you are going to add salt, obviously much better to add sea salt, even though it's not even really a raw food, and so forth. And do be careful, overconsumption of sodium or of processed salts, even sea salt, that's where a lot of people sabotage themselves. That's where a lot of people hit a plateau and don't really detox at a deeper level. Okay, next category is fermented foods. This is going to include your pickled foods like your cucumber, okra, cabbage, sauerkraut, kimchi, vinegars, and I'm sure there's other examples. Basically, the sugars have fermented and turned into sugar alcohol. These foods have not been pasteurized, so you have microbes living in and around the food. Okay, now there are benefits, like they have probiotics. Also, they're savory, tasty, salty, and delicious. So if someone's transitioning, this can help with that. But the bad thing is that this is an acid-forming food. You should feel the acidity in your mouth when you have the vinegar. And this is not a vital food. Also, it can be overstimulating to too much fungal activity in the body, because when you're eating fermented foods, basically it's much more difficult for your body to process sugar alcohol. So basically the body needs help to break it down. Your small intestine absorbs sugar alcohol at only half the rate of regular sugar. So the rest of it basically is going to be left to ferment and throughout the intestinal tract. So basically it just allows fungal, yeast, candida type organisms to proliferate in the gut. And so the more you eat this type of foods, fermented foods, the more you get colonized by an excess of harmful organisms, fungus, yeast. When you have an overgrowth of these things, this is not good. I mean, this can cause mood swings, drops in energy, even psychic effects, and of course they can influence an individual's appetite and cravings for more foods that are acidic and unnatural and fermented. So make sure that that you do a parasite cleanse, especially if you're craving a lot of like fermented foods and alcohol and stuff like that. So make sure you do rapidregeneration.com/parasite cleanse. And if you are looking to grow the good bacteria in your body, a much more balanced way would be to just eat fresh, ripe foods which have good bacteria, or use a probiotic, which you can find at rapidregeneration.com/probiotic. Okay, next category is refined sugar. So be careful of this. I mean, this is so prolific in restaurants and food products, right? This is a complex sugar. It's from sucrose, creates an acidic condition, creates excessive mucus. There's so many health problems. This is one thing that the mainstream community gets right, saying sugar is the devil. But yes, it's this processed complex sucrose sugar. Also, a lot of cane sugars are processed using bone char, which is basically cow bone powder, to change the color from brown to white. Some also use a different method, granular carbon, which is still unnatural, to change the color. So if you have to add sugar to a home-based recipe, add like date sugar or coconut sugar. It would be so much better. Okay, next raw food to consider avoiding is grains, beans, starches, and overly starchy vegetables and fruits. So, the recommendation of, of grains, beans, and starches should be apparent. It's covered more extensively in another segment. Causes over acidity. Also starches. Now, it's not a black and white issue. It's a spectrum because foods can be more or less starchy. But just keep in mind, raw foods like butternut squash, pumpkin, jicama, palm starch, cauliflower, carrots, beets, and underripe plantains. Of course, you want to avoid your potatoes, sweet potatoes, corn, and your sprouted grains, your sprouted beans, like your buckwheat, millet, garbanzo beans. Yeah, I mean, basically, let's say if you eat a fruit that's high in starch, it's high in complex sugars, and it's creating acidic chemistry. And so, yes, it's electrical raw food, but the result is still acidic. Okay, so next up is peanuts. Now, this is a short one. The peanut is not even a nut. It's a legume. It's a bean. And so, yeah, I mean, it's redundant to even mention, but just know the peanut is not a nut. It's an imposter. You know that you shouldn't eat beans or legumes or lentils. We've covered the reasons why. Very acid forming, high in phytic acids, enzyme inhibiting, irritating to the GI tract. So avoid peanuts. Oils is the next category. Okay, oils are processed, they're fractionated, the molecules have been significantly interfered with, okay, in that process, and it is no longer a whole food. So it is a rather unnatural thing for your body to consume. It's normal to consume a certain amount of fats and oils within other foods, but in the realm of nature, when would you ever come across a vial of oil? Oils that are heated are even worse as compared with extra virgin or raw versions of oils which are processed without heat. The oils that are heated, the chemistry completely changes when they're heated. There's also an issue with the omega-6 to omega-3 ratios, which can cause an imbalance in that area, with the exception of, let's say, like virgin flaxseed oil. But yes, ultimately, just keep this in mind with the oils. Okay, next up category is avocados in excess. Keyword is in excess, okay? You're eating them occasionally, okay. But yes, you can eat too much of this food. It has an unbalanced omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. Also, the body can be given too much fat and protein. It can overwork the digestive system. It can slow down the detoxification process of the body. This is not to say you should never eat avocados. It's just that when I switched over and stopped eating them as much and started eating chia seeds, flaxseed, and hemp seeds instead, it was a huge game changer for me. So I still like it. I still eat it sometimes, but it's no longer a main food source. Okay, next category is coconut in excess. All right, again, it has an imbalanced omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. It is a fatty food. It can slow down the detoxification process, and I feel a bit bloated if I eat too much coconut. Like my body's energy gets redirected. Enjoy it sometimes. There's a lot of neat food items that are created with coconut, so it's very versatile food. Just be aware that you can eat too much of it. Okay, next is nuts and seeds in excess. Okay, again, we've covered this before. Foods that are very protein rich, are more acid forming. You can overdo it. You can eat too much, and as opposed to eating your sulfites, it's not heated, it's natural, or some alcoholic product. So there's still potential blowback on the body's tissues. The effects of alcohol are shown to be detrimental to the mouth, esophagus, stomach lining, gastrointestinal tract, liver, heart, cardiovascular system, nervous system, and brain. And as much fun as alcohol is, there is a price to be paid. I am going to cover this more in depth in the upcoming segment about caffeine, alcohol, and marijuana and other stimulants. So you may consider avoiding this. Okay, next up is kombucha. This is a milder form of alcoholic beverage, basically. It's not even a raw food, it's brewed, but I just want to mention it because I see it so often. It's a fermented food and would therefore be stimulating to an overgrowth of yeast, fungus, and candida. This can lead to so many issues. Okay, next one is nutritional yeast. This is not really a raw food. It's a fungus that's turned into a food product. Okay, you culture a yeast and then you cook it with heat to kill the yeast, and then you make it ready for consuming. So aside from being a cooked food, really be careful because it's really a processed food, and so many nutritional yeasts have an ingredient that's added, which is a synthetic toxic form of B12 known as cyanocobalamin. So be very careful with that. Okay, the next raw food to consider avoiding is certain teas. Now this is not really a raw food either, but I feel it should be addressed because it's so widespread. So many teas, like your classic English teas or unsweet tea in the US, can contain high amounts of tannins, alkaloids, and acidic compounds that can be toxic and harmful to the body, overwhelming the liver and kidneys. Now there are herbal teas that are much gentler and do not contain nearly as much of these harmful compounds. So I've enjoyed herbal teas which use certain healing herbs, and I've experienced their therapeutic benefits. But just know, be discerning, be careful about what you consume, and know that there could be some downside as well. Okay, next, getting towards the end here, raw food to consider avoiding, mushrooms. Okay, the overall takeaway is mostly agnostic. All right, they don't seem terrible, but may have some issues. Mushrooms possess no nutritional benefit and traditional nutrition to the body. They're calorically empty food. There are some benefits observed from mushrooms, which can't be ignored. So I will note that for sure. I have experienced the benefits firsthand of mushrooms, let me tell you. So I get that, but the presence of mycotoxins from fungi consumed can result in inhibition of protein synthesis, interference with the immune system and white blood cells, and blockage of the respiratory system and other systems in the body. There is a potential risk of some issues creating disharmony. I'm not super worried about it, but I would err on the side of avoiding. Okay. Next, second to last on the list is carbonated water. Now this is a toughie because I love a cool, refreshing glass of sparkling mineral water. But consider not sucking down these on a regular basis because carbon monoxide is pumped into the H2O, which creates an overall acid hit when you consume. And you could feel that burn in your mouth, throat, chest, and belly. So, I mean, I still drink it sometimes. I'm not saying you can't ever have it. I just was enjoying it so much to the point where I was drinking it every day and I started noticing a negative effect. I looked into it. Sure enough, the mineral water is beneficial, but the carbon monoxide chemistry is acidic. This is not a health promoting combination. Okay, last on the list is honey. Honey is a sweet treat that we get quite easily in the modern world, but think about it. Is it really natural? you would have to have been slightly insane to harvest honey in an anthropological setting. Intuitively, honey wouldn't really make sense to eat without modern equipment to prevent ourselves from getting stung. Now, there are benefits for sure of honey which are worth noting. Just keep in mind, honey contains bacteria oftentimes which can be toxic and can cause the immune system to be overworked. And so, I went through a big honey phase. I really lost my taste for it over the years, and I really don't seek it out or crave it much anymore. So overall, it's not terrible. There are some upsides, but also has some issues and could affect you if you eat it. All right. So in conclusion, I want to be clear that this chapter, it's all about extra credit. Okay, everything is relative. If you were just recently eating, burgers and French fries and junk foods, then going to any version of eating more raw foods is going to be a zillion times better, and you should see massive improvements. So don't worry too much about this for now. If you're really transitioning, think about it for a later time, when you've gotten much more alkaline and much more transition to a healthy lifestyle. But the higher up you go in terms of achieving your goals, getting yourself healthy, well, and energetic, then the more sensitive you might find that you are, and you might feel roadblocked from some direction, like you're slowed down. And if you're experiencing that, it could be a good time to heighten your level of awareness and expand your consciousness that maybe a problematic food is causing this. So try playing around with this knowledge. Consider removing an item from the menu of what you're eating, substitute something else, and just see how that feels. It really is easier than you think to give up something like onions or peppers or garlic. It's easier than you think, and just try it for yourself. See how you feel after a week or 2 weeks. And yes, and just know that this is simply the scientific side of things. It's the biological side of things, the chemical, and the investigative approach. I didn't make this stuff up. It's not like I wanted to, just avoid these things because I don't like them. I do like them. And I'm just figuring out the truth, and I'm sharing that with you. You have to use discernment, and you have to listen to your gut and to your instinct and figure out what's the truth. And so that's my goal. That's my mission. That's what I'm doing. And my commitment to help you is put together the truthful information. You don't have to be a saint. You don't have to be a monk. You don't have to abstain 100%. But it just helps to grow your awareness of these things so that you can navigate the world and figure out what works for you. So that is it. I'm so excited. We have rounded out your knowledge of the world of foods. I mean, you have the most amazing full spectrum analysis now of foods, how to deal with foods, how different foods work, and how to navigate that. And so now that you have that, God, we've come a long way from the total body cleansing, to the role of supplements, to some of these higher level fast and cleanses, to transitioning, the art of transitioning and balance, to then really understanding the nature of foods. And if you've done this, I mean, that is incredible. And what's left is to look at non-food things that you can do. Now, these are like the easy things. Now, some of them are easier than others. Some of them cost money. Some of them are free. But next up is going to be a couple last points about balancing and how to navigate this crazy world, and then more natural health techniques, biohacks, shortcuts, and just some amazing strategies. So I'll see you on the upcoming segments. And as always, this is brought to you by rapidregeneration.com. Bye for now.
For more information, please follow at Rapid Regeneration or visit rapidregeneration.com.